Hello and welcome. So I'm going to give you a brief look at my new titanium stove. This is made by Winds and it's the TW1020C. That is the model number. And this is a foldable, packable, super lightweight wood stove for a tent. And the main furnace is 37.5 centimeters long by 21 centimeters tall and 177 wide, and the chimney diameter is 6.3 centimeters. But that's just the half of it. I mean, this is my first trip out with it, and so far I'm in love with it. It's 23 degrees in this tent. It's November. I've got the doors open and I'm just in a thin little shirt. Yeah, so it is kicking out some heat. And the good thing about this stove is, compared with my old one, which was like a Frontier stove, made of sort of cast iron material and weighed about 12 kilos. The stove itself I think is 1.3 kilos. The chimney's about 100 grams. And all put together in its storage bag, it's just shy of 1.8 kilos. And the storage bag is the size of a laptop bag and just slots in your backpack. And this stove also features a glass front. So you've got the ultimate bushcraft TV from the comfort of your tent, and I'm loving that. But there's a caveat, because when you get this stove you need to treat it very carefully, otherwise it is possible to ruin that chimney. So I'm going to take you back to my house in a moment and we'll go through how I set it up, because I did a bit of research and took my time and had some help. So yeah, let's go through how to set it up first time and burn it in and make it so that it's then easy to use out in the bush, as it were. So this is how the stove comes packaged, and this bag feels, pretty sturdy, to be fair, and it's not much bigger than a small laptop bag. The zips, they seem okay. So what you get essentially is you get a place to store your sort of round things, the chimneys, and then a place to store the main body of the stove. Now the chimney, when you first buy the stove, requires a bit of TLC. I'm going to get my wife in here to help with that in just a minute. So I'm going to leave that there, but we'll put the stove together first and you can have a look at how that all fits together. In the packaging you also get the log pusher inner. So that's the bag and that is the stove, and that is ridiculously small and light. So you've got a Velcro strap to hold it all together. We'll get rid of that. So that's the bottom of the stove with the feet on, and that's the rest of the stove. And all of this is one unit, as it were. The front and the back come up, and then you do the sides one at a time. And this is a little bit of a squeeze at times. When you get to the last one, you just kind of pull it apart from the sides. It's a snug fit. You see here, it just kind of fits in nicely. But if you don't quite get it in, then it doesn't want to stay when you put the base on. Right, I find if you just bring these up a touch, because these are quite stiff. Right, so the base all clipped on, and you can pull these up, slotting under there. Screw them in. And the feet are secure and they shouldn't pop out. Right, so there we are. Stove's built. Then you've got a hole for the chimney. So what you got here is this very, very thin titanium you've got the bit that clips onto the stove that the chimney will sit on. You've got 2 of these clamps. You've got the spark arrestor. And then you've got a whole load of these rings which go around the chimney to hold it all together. And the idea of this is packaged for storage, and then when you want to use the stove, you unroll this and roll it up the other way. And I've seen people struggle with this the first time, and you can ruin this chimney, you know, it can be all creased and ugly looking. So the idea is that you would do this at home first, which is what I'm going to do, and then you burn the stove and you temper the metal so that it sort of remembers its shape for when you're out and you want to do it again. It should be much easier to roll up into its chimney form. Rather than try and struggle and do this myself, I'm going to get my wife in so we get 2 pairs of hands on it, roll it up, give it its first burn. Next time I use it, it should all kind of remember where it's going and go into place. Does that make sense? The thin titanium is very sharp, so gloves are probably a prudent thing. Right, so just going to let that unspool. So we're going to try to roll the whole chimney, get all of the rings on at one end, and then gradually bring them along, and then attach this using that, and then one of them at the other end. And hopefully then you can pick up the whole chimney and slot it straight in the stove. That's the theory. From one end. That fit on? Okay, so you've got one on.
Yeah.
You slide that in a foot or so, if you can. Let's see if you can get all the others on. So I may end up cutting this down to fit the tent size. This 3 meters might be, a bit too tall for my little tent. There we go. So this is the clip that attaches to the stove itself. The advice is that you get this on the inside of the flue so that it creates a proper seal for when the smoke's going up. If you have it on the outside, potentially you get some smoke leaking out the outside of it. So is that possible? Do we need to move these to make it wider?
Just a tiny little bit.
In?
Yeah.
And then bring this back down again.
How far? Right in? Right up to
Well,
that?
you need, that's the spark arrestor slot, so don't cover that.
Okay, but it needs enough room for one of these to go on.
Yeah, Jubilee clips. That's
Or in just...
Swing it round.
I think this one hasn't got anything else to go in it.
You can buy a separate spark arrestor that sits on the top, and that would hold onto it. So no, it just does it up for now. So that's the chimney put together. I'm going to take it outside now and put it all together, and we'll light the stove up and let it get that first burn, and we'll decide whether it's too big, and I'm going to cut some off it. Hold it up right. So this has got the little clippy things. I want the spark arrestor to be on the side, so if that goes in that way, hold it up right a little bit more, that's it. As a chimney, I think that is way too tall, don't you? I think we could easily cut 1 metre off that and it'll be fine.
Down to like that.
Yeah, because the risk is, because the stove is so small and lightweight, if the chimney is massive, then it's going to put unnecessary stress on that join there. So yeah, I think we're going to cut it down. So the consensus is that this is way too long for my purpose. Obviously it's different for everybody, but if you're using a one-man tent or a lavu or something, then a 3-metre chimney is just too big. And if you're sticking right out the tent, you know, right up into the trees, then you've obviously then got to be careful of what's above you, because that will be hot. But also the wind and stuff, it would be really unstable. So we're going to cut about 1 metre off it. Right, so we'll just put the spark arrestor in, which slots through like that. So then when you want to close the chimney a little bit, you've got the ability. So as this is the first burn, you know, I'm expecting a little bit of warping and stuff, and there is a little bit on the sides, and the logo has kind of bent out a bit, but we'll see once it's burnt and cooled sort of how it packs back together, and you know, whether the warping sort of rights itself or whether that's the way it is. But yeah, it's all new to me, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first burn is complete. Now that should have tempered this metal in order to make it easier to roll up for future camping trips. So I'm going to take this apart. Roll, that's okay. And you can see in there, you can see the colour difference. Sorry, that's noisy. You can see the colour difference where it's had the heat. So, just for future reference, when you roll this up, we've discovered you roll it big first and then kind of tuck it. That seems to be the way to do it, rather than trying to get it really small and work from there. If you just fold it so it's a larger circle, then it's easier to kind of tease down and you avoid all them nasty creases in the chimney. So that's something we've learned. There we go. So I can put all them rings in the middle and then these sort of Jubilee clips outside of them. Just keep the tension on it for a minute. So hopefully I can get that on there as well, and then let it, there we go, spring out. So the little spark arrestor slots inside. We can put the Velcro around it just to help hold it all together. That's the chimney kind of burned in and ready for use for future camps. Now let's take a closer look at the stove. Now I said there was some warping, but interestingly, now that it's cooled, that's kind of closed itself up, and it had closed itself up after a little while of burning as well. So yeah, there is a tiny gap there, but that gap was huge when I first lit it, and I think it's the kind of the suction of everything, it was pulling it in. But it seems to have righted itself now. There was a little bit of a gap on the top of the door, but that seems not too bad. The South wind sign, that curled right out, but that straightened itself up as well. So it seems to have done okay. I think it just needs that first burn to settle in, and then we're good as gold. Obviously you don't pour cold water on here to try and cool it down, because that will warp it. Just letting it cool naturally. Got these lovely colours on the top now as well, really like that. I've got a bit of stain there because I touched it with these gloves and immediately melted the gloves, so it does get very hot. But let's pack it away and see if it all folds down as it should. Other than that, we're done. Reverse process, so undo these little side nuts. Down, should come down, take that off. Yeah, see, it's warped a little bit, but I don't think it's too bad. It's a reverse process. Sides go down, front and back goes down. Open the door for storage so it's not sticking out, and then this base part fits over just to protect that glass. Strap it in the Velcro. Back in the bag, and what I'm also going to put in the bag is 2 stove jacks I've got that sort of fit different hot tents that I own, and I'm also going to put these heat-proof gloves in, and I think it'd be sensible to put a pair of these in case I ever forget them. These are only, they're like £1. These are PU coated kind of work gloves, but they're just handy because this does have sharp edges, especially the chimney, so you've got to be a bit careful. But all of that should, by rights, fit in this pack. And that is the entire stove and its accessories stored away. Good, we're ready to rock. So that was how I prepped this stove in order to use it for my kind of camping. Obviously the 3-metre chimney, you know, if you've got a bigger tent that would be ideal, but for someone like me, 2-metre chimney is ample. And setting it up today I've had no issues. I unrolled the chimney, it unrolled of its own accord, and it just kind of sprang into its natural shape, and it was very easy to roll up, very easy to put together. But I wouldn't want to do that first whilst being out in the woods by myself on uneven ground and all that sort of thing. It's well worth doing at home. But I paid about £280 for this stove. I bought it with my own money. I'm not, I don't have any affiliation with Southwind, but I do rate this stove so far. I've only used it the once, but yeah. The fact that I could get it in my backpack and walk here with no, you know, with no issues at all was just wonderful. And I'm you know, looking forward to a winter of hot tent camping, and many winters of hot tent camping if I look after it. But yes, so far it's doing very well. Yeah, at the moment there's no issues with carbon monoxide. The chimney's doing fine. I did have, you know, fears at the chimney because it's a rolled up thing that maybe it would leak a bit of, you know, noxious gases, but so far it seems to be behaving really well. I've got the carbon monoxide alarm hung from the top of the tent, which if there's any issues will alert me, which is I think good practice if you're going to use these kinds of stoves in a tent. So that is the Thouse Winds wood burning stove for a tent, whatever you call it, hot tent stove. And yeah, I'm a happy customer at the moment. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go back to my overnight hot tent camp and see you soon. Thanks for watching. See you later.